Thank you for having us.
Okie doke. Halswell-Hornby-Riccarton. Helen and Marie, please. You start to run around like a spring chicken, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and present. I have 15 minutes, including questions. Thank you. I felt your annual plan was particularly good this year. It seemed particularly clear for a lay reader, and you had really good questions that followed the plan. So we actually followed the plan. We didn't actually deviate from that. So I'll just pick up some of the highlights. Rates, we consider it realistic in the current climate. When I was on council, I always argued you should be using the construction price index, which was about 4.1, and we were always going higher in rates. But I did check briefly, and the construction price index is 12.1. Whether I've got the right figures, it was from a phone call to the Department of Stats. So I think you're doing well in terms of being realistic. We argue for support where possible for those who are struggling to pay rates. So if you could somehow help those who are struggling, there are a range of mechanisms which you have, and we'd just like those perhaps published more, or perhaps just say if you have problems, please contact council. We support the business differential. The uniform annual charge, it's the lowest in New Zealand, and I believe we should keep it as it is. It was, just going back in time when I was a councillor, it was always argued every year, this whole debate every year, and since 2019 or 20, I understand this council has made it inflation adjusted. That seems really sensible. So it's quietly going up, but not dramatically. And I understand the possibility of a potential reduction to $50. I think that's or the board thinks that's a backward step, because if actioned, if you do this, I don't think you'll ever get it back again to the $153. It will just stay at that lower level. Now, I'm aware that will be an approach that some people think's best, but there'll be others who don't. And I just warn you that it'll be very difficult to make it rise again if you push it back this time. I am going back a bit, aren't I? I'm being reflective. Helen Clark, as Prime Minister in 2008, did a study on the rates relationship to income. How did income correlate with rates? And what came out of that, it was quite a long document, but there was a reasonable correlation, but not a complete correlation. So there's some people out there with homes and high rates which have low income. So I think you have to bear that in mind. And again, if you've got the structure now for the uniform annual general charge, why change it? Excess water charges. Our board argued against the excess water charges last year, but we understand this needs to be considered in the long-term plan. So all we're saying today, the argument today is whether you set it at 700 litres or 900. Our board believes it should be set at 900 litres. The capital program, we appreciate the capital funding for our board. We're a growing board, both in terms of intensification, in terms of subdivision, and also in Hornby we have residential houses close to industry. So we ask for all our capital projects which are there to be retained. So we ask that they're retained. We're not asking for anything more. I'll touch on 3. The Awatea Springs intersection was put in recently to your annual plan. We want that retained. Halswell Junction Road extension improvements are required. We please ask you to continue with that. That's been a long time coming. Halswell Junction Road offers access to Waterloo Business Park, and it's in a very poor state. It was under Land Transport, Waka Kotahi, and it hasn't been managed at all. They've left it go because of the motorway. So please keep that there. Arguing for a dog park in Halswell. There's a very strong indication from Halswell that they would like a dog park. It's there in the plan. I guess if some design work could be done, and then it goes through to the long-term plan next year. Just want to comment on the footpath on the main South Road outside Countdown. That's a Hornby issue. They do not have a footpath, and it's exceedingly dangerous. So somehow, if that could be looked at over the coming year, we would appreciate that. On a positive note, we've got the Matariki Centre maybe opening at the end of this year, and everybody is looking forward to that, particularly people in Hornby. So that's all I want to say. If you want anything to add?
Just wanted probably to emphasize on the fenced dog park for the Halswell ward. I believe it was in the previous board plan and in the LTP, and then it was deferred. So we want it back in our board priority plan. And this time in consultation, it was the most popular that we have it back on then. Yep.
Thank you very much. Have
Thank
we
you.
all done? You got any questions, anybody? Melanie?
Thank you.
With the Capital Endowment Fund use, do you have the same concern as the previous board about that actually reducing the amount of ratepayer money going towards strengthening
Yes.
communities, and that potentially what the worry is for some boards is that that might potentially carry on in future, therefore reducing the size of that strengthening communities fund in future years? Do you have any comments on that?
We've just focused on, do we support it for this year? And the argument is that we do support it at the higher level. There's 2 options there. So our board supports it at that higher
You haven't
level.
thought about future years?
I think going forward, it may be an option going forward, but that would be tested during the long-term plan. Was that the question you asked me? Yes.
Thank you. No more questions?
No question? We followed the process exactly.
Done a lovely-
We don't normally do that.
You've done a lovely job. Thank you very, very much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Good on you.
Thank you.
Okay.